Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome and thank you for willing to spend the next 30 to 45 minutes with us. My name is Peace Ichiomuha and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Today's webinar is titled, Can You Spot Fraud? I'm pretty much certain that after this session, if someone asks you that question, you'd confidently tell them yes. New advanced tools for identifying and removing fraud from qualitative research. For context, this is part one of an 8-part series of webinars we'll be presenting over the next few months, discussing many of the headaches related to qualitative research management and how itracks has built a new software to address these pain points. We'll provide a quick overview of the overall function of the product, but today's session will focus primarily on identifying and removing fraudulent participants from your qualitative project. Before we jump in, a few housekeeping items so we all know how this works. First, the session is being recorded. We share the recording afterwards with everybody, so feel free to share the recording with your colleagues who you think would find this conversation insightful. Second, all attendees are muted for the session. That's just to keep the audio clean for the recording. Third, and the most important one is please make sure you use the Q&A. When we get to that segment, make sure you use the Q&A panel to drop your questions. The chat is open too, so use that to say hellos, drop comments, and share anything you want to with the wider group. All right, we are now on the mark. With us today, we have Shelly Lindley, Project Director at SMARInsights, and Dan Weber, President of itracks. In getting to know Dan, he founded itracks back in 1996, which made it one of the real pioneers in online surveys and online qualitative software. And he has grown it into a world-leading market research service firm. From working on traditional market research, Dan has been very close to his clients, co-creating the platform with them. And you say, or you would agree with me that that is where human-centered design comes in. And most recently, he has turned his attention to exactly what we're discussing today, using technology to solve the recruiting and fraudulent challenges facing the qualitative industry. Hi, Dan. Do you want to quickly unmute and say hi to the audience?
Hi, Peace. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us today. Next is Shelly. And in getting to know Shelly, she describes her own role as the glue that holds a project together during implementation. And I think that's exactly right. She coordinates across the SMARInsights team to keep project timelines on track so results land when they are promised. Before joining, she had nearly a decade of supervising and managing customer satisfaction research and telephone centers. A lot of attention to detail she brings to the table and a real grounding in building feedback systems that clients can rely on. Welcome, Shelly. Do you want to unmute for a minute and say hi to the audience?
Yes. Hi, everybody. Glad to be here and hope I provide some information that's usable for you.
All right. Thank you so much, Shelly. So here's how we'd run it. We're going to start with Dan, who would take us through what drove him to build this management software for Qual, and specifically the components that deal with fraud. Then we'll come to Shelly, who would walk us through what recruiting for Qual actually felt like before and after using the itracks management software. From there, we'll go deeper into fraud specifically, and then we'll open it up to every single one of you, our audience, to ask your questions. So for the first part, let's start with Dan. In a couple of minutes, Dan, can you tell us about your own experience managing qualitative projects and how you built the software? What was the problem you were running into or you kept running into?
Certainly, Peace, and maybe I'll just give a little bit of a background in order to kind of speak to how we got here. Very early on, my passion is in software development and building the tools associated to running qualitative research. And at the onset, the initial focus was just the data collection, making tools with backends, with the ability to analyze this data very quickly and easily. And so most of it was focused on the experience at perhaps the moderator. But very early on, I realized that many clients were coming to me and they say, Dan, we really like your software, but can you help us in finding these people for the research? And often, though that part of the research was the most important in terms of the size and scope of the project. Maybe it's an international project with many different groups from in many different countries. And so quickly I got involved in the recruiting side of things, and whether that's through really great partners like Shelly, who can do some really specific stuff, or if that was just managing and dealing with some general population work where we have our own panel. Either way, they were still a beast. Managing qualitative projects is a tough go, and there's so many pieces and parts that are required to make sure it goes well, and everything from getting the screener right, getting the distributed, and all of the quotas that come with it, all the communication, the recruit grids, they go back and forth, and what I realized very quickly, there's so much work associated to this type of project, but very little tools or software that was built specifically for that piece. And in part of that, one of the pieces that was required, and I learned this the hard way very early on, is that you needed to have tools in place for fraud management. If you can think, some of these studies offer $100, $150, and upwards of that if you're talking with professionals or business owners and so on. And so it opens a window for people to try to get in. It's enticing to be able to earn that type of money in an hour and a half. And so like I said, learned the hard way that we had some people that made it through our screener, even talk to us or text with us about their capabilities, but in the actual event, it was clear that they weren't who they said they were. So that got us thinking in terms of development, and that's what this session is focused on today. But I just want to give you a couple of examples before we go forward here. These are just 2 videos that we received as part of our screening process, and I can go into it a little bit later how we do this, but I'm just going to share my screen here, please, if you don't mind.
I am ready. The preview is live and I'll start my response as soon as I press record.
That person I didn't take in my focus group. He made it through the screener quite readily and looked from the data that they were qualified, but this was one of the checks that we did. I'm just gonna share my screen again and give you another example.
Hi there, my name is Jada. I'm from the Bay Area, California, and I'm interested in this study just because I'm curious to talk about healthcare and what information you guys are looking to get. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Jada was someone that we took. She was an excellent participant. So as you can see, these are, you're getting a wide range of participants that are getting through kind of that whole screening process. And then that's when the work starts. So these are examples of what was taken from our tool. And I'll go into that in a little bit. But yeah, that's the reason why I built it. And this is what we're working towards, Peace.
Thank you so much, Dan. I particularly love the practical example. Yeah. And like I said earlier, I'm very certain that once we come to the end of this webinar and anybody asks you, can you spot fraud? You proudly tell them that you definitely can. So I'd like to come to Shelly. Shelly, of course, you've described your role as the glue that holds a project together when we're talking about timelines, budgets, contracts, sample management. All of it runs through you. I want you to take us inside a normal week. What does managing a core project actually look like for you? And I'm especially interested in the recruiting phase because I assume that's where most of the pressure sits.
Oh, yes, thank you. Well, it's getting the recruited started with our sample vendor and managing the particular project requirements as the project progresses. It's a lot of time spent with our client to be sure we're getting the people that are needed for the sessions. We generally do a 3-to-1 recruit, so there's a lot of time following up with each panelist to confirm their commitment to the study, balancing demographics as well as behavioral propensities. And then the day prior to the session, we're reconfirming our recruits, which generally we have to recruit or back before we started working with itracks, we had to recruit 14 individuals, have them double confirmed for 8 to 10 to be actually used in the session, because you just don't know what you're going to get, right? I mean, you think you recruited, just like Dan showed you, you think you recruited certain individuals, and then they're showing up, you have them come about 15 minutes before the session starts, and all of a sudden you realize you have people that aren't demographically what you thought they were going to be. They're obviously from another country. So there's a lot of last minute effort spent trying to figure out who we're going to keep. We have a commitment to the client that we're going to have 8 to 10 to show. Who are you going to keep, so that you make sure you have that quality, that they come away with actionable results from your session. So we're spending a lot of time confirming with these people, double confirming, making sure everything is what it needs to be. But at the end, if you don't have a tool like itracks, which we started with them last year, it's kind of there's a shot in the dark with that. So it's a big difference now that we're using itracks.
Very interesting, Shelly. I have another question I'm going to ask real quick, but I just want to mention that I dare say this is indeed a timely conversation, as fraud in qualitative research is one major headache the industry is facing right now. And there's a lot of costs when a fraudulent participant, gets into your recruitment process. And because, Shelly, you're the person who ultimately answers to the clients when something goes wrong on a project, right? Before I ask you how you handle fraud today, we want to get a quick sense of what the stakes are. What does it actually cost when a fraudulent participant slips through? And I mean cost in every sense: timeline, budget, and the client's trust.
Well, let me say a little bit more. I've been working in the qualitative workspace for about more than 30 years. From back in the day when focus groups were in person, recruited and held in cities across the country, to bulletin board text chat groups, and most currently the online video focus groups. And of course, each platform has its benefits and challenges. With the video group platform, we typically have last minute surprises as people show up for the session. Of course, we always have some AV issues that we're attending to. We can't hear the participant, they can't see us. But the most important issues that we have is to quickly address are the participants with the self-reported demos like gender, ethnicity, age, that obviously don't match what we're seeing on the screen. And also, difficult accents to deal with. And we're trying to balance, once again, what we're going to have actually in the group. These things immediately affect the tone of the session with our clients. They're seeing people come in, and they know there's some problems with it, and they're watching us how we handle these problems. We quickly have to make decisions regarding who to keep. These poorly recruited participants affect our client's opinion of our entire recruit for that particular session, as well as any other scheduled sessions for that research project. They're wondering, who did we use as a sample provider? What kind of follow-ups we did? It's questioning our quality. And fiscally, we also have to over-recruit for these scenarios. So there are always additional recruiting costs, as well as additional incentives to pay out, because, I recruited 14. Maybe they all were good. I've got 14 people I had to recruit, plus the incentives that we had to pay. It affects the cost of the project, and more importantly, can affect the cost of our client questioning our recruit. The itracks PM tool has helped us with these extra challenges.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shelly, for that. And I'm going to bring it to Dan now on the solution. Like Shelly has referenced, it affects the cost, the budget cost of the project, and then it also affects your clients questioning the organization's quality in all the qualitative processes. So Dan, do you want to walk us through how participants verification works on itracks? And just to be specific, because I think this is what a lot of people want to see, how can we make sure that we remove fraud from our qualitative research process?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peace. And I'd just like to echo Shelly's comments. It's just it's a trust. It's the client. It's not that they lose trust in you as a supplier, but they really, it undermines the project and the work that you've done. Like you have 10 really good people that you've worked hard to find to get into that, and it's only one person that spoils the soup. I forget the saying, but um, and so that's what we're trying to avoid with this, and we've like I said, I'm gonna just share my screen again here. You guys can have a look. If you can see that there.
Yes.
So this is the interface that Shelly uses, and now growing number of clients are using to prepare for their groups. I call it a delivery truck and not a Ferrari. It's something designed specifically for work use, and it's there to help the project managers. It's actually there to help all people involved. It's an efficient way to communicate with participants, an efficient way to communicate with your client throughout that process, and just generally useful for even the end client. The end client is able to log in and have a look at some of what you've designed, effectively a recruit grid. So it's designed for all parties that are involved in our recruiting process. But what you're looking at is the interface that Shelly would be looking at. Down here, we have some people that have made it through our screener. You'll see their demographic data and any of the data that they've inputted into the study. And this is inputted with a simple upload. So I can take my data from whatever screening software I'm using. I can put it into this space. And that will show up down here in this section here. Now, as long as each of the records that they upload have a unique ID, I can then go one step further and start implementing some of these screening processes. So we've built a tool for doing texting, group texting and group emailing. So I can take this entire group, I could send them all a text saying, hey, can you send us a video? Or can we just send you an invite, or could you confirm your presence? So again, just a really, really efficient way to communicate with the participants. We found over time, we were originally using telephone to contact participants to, as a part of a screening process. But we found over time, more and more people screen your calls, especially if you're from out of province or out of state. They start screening your calls, and you may have someone that's really good, but they're not recognizing you as someone that just generally wants to rescreen them and prepare them for the research. What we did find is by texting first and getting a response through text, in addition to email, that combination is enough to initiate that discussion, and from there, there's a trust established between the participant and the moderator, or the recruiter, and then communication can continue. It's very convenient using the tool because you have the ability to do those types of texts either as reminders and so on as well. So just as an example, I'm going to send myself a text here. And it'll just take a second to come up on my phone. And while we're waiting, the interface for, I don't have it here, but the interface is quite friendly. It talks to them, okay, it gives you the question that you're to answer. I just start recording. Hi, my name is Dan, and I'm doing a quick recording to show how video articulation works. And I'll just submit that. And then it'll take a second for our servers to grab that. But as a researcher, what you'd see is after you sent that out, you start to see these records populate with the actual videos themselves. So I'll just see if this is loaded. Just take a second to refresh. And I find this actually the most fun part of the research. You start to see some of the people that you potentially get, who you might be interested. Now I need to share with my audio again. I might have to stop and do that again. Is that right, Peace?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop that. I'll just show you how this worked.
Okay.
Share. Sorry, I'm not as versed in Zoom as others. Hi, my name is Dan, and I'm doing a quick recording to show how video articulation works. So you can see there how that all comes together. And really, and Shelly, you can attest to this. This is what you spend a good part of your day, the rest part, going through these videos, deciding whether or not these are the people you want to see. I'm just going to go back here now. And so let's assume, this is someone that I want in my study. I'm going to approve them and move them up into an area of what we call ready for scheduling. Now, what you're going to notice is when I put that person up ready for scheduling, this area over here, which is our quota area, it starts to reflect who you've placed up into this space. So it's not unusual for any type of study to have certain quotas by project or even by group. So the nice thing about this now is I can start assigning people to groups, but I can also see the overall quotas and how they're shaping out, but I can also look at them by group. So that'll take a little while to refresh. And so as a project manager, I can see how this is coordinating. And then I can go down and say, okay, well, I'm looking for a few more Hispanic participants. Can I come down into my, maybe I found someone I really like, but they haven't done a video yet. Then I'm asking them again, hey, you know what, we'd like to, possibly have you join us. Can you work on our video there? There's a whole bunch of other features, which we're going to go through in subsequent webinars, like how we manage recruit grids and updates to the client. There's a whole communication and notes section where you can actually be communicating rather than emailing back and forth all this information and data and so on. In a secure place, we can speak with our managers, the rest of project managers, moderators, anyone who's observing, even other recruiters. We have a new feature that we've just added where you can add multiple recruiters to this platform. So the ability to you may be doing a large international study, and you have someone specifically to do it in different countries. All of those people can be using the same platform, entering data into their own spreadsheets, which will then be managed by the one project manager. So obviously the tools, they work quite fabulously with all of our board and video tools. One thing to note, it does work with Zoom or Teams as well. And so you can use the tool if you have a client that says, no, specifically we have our own Zoom account, we need to use that. You can use these tools to recruit and then using Zoom or Teams as a platform. We support them as well. If you need if you need technical support in any of your events, you can just call on us as part of the booking process and get us in. So that's a brief overview of the fraud elements. There's one more piece I wanted to just show you.
Okay.
Once we have someone recruited, we take them through what we call our technical check. And this is kind of a last line of defense where we take a look at where they're logging in from, whether they're using VPNs to log in or so on. And, as we build tools, people get smarter and smarter. But one thing I just wanted to point out, here's one it was a US only study. It looks like they're coming in from US. But what we've recognized is there are routing or information, the things or the tools or the VPNs that they're coming in. There's these certain names, and this one 247 Europe, what we found, the long history of people logging. This is a tool that people are using to try to mask where they're coming from in order to get into these studies. So we're always trying to be on top of that. But between the video articulation, question, conversation, follow up through text, or even a call, you can call them at that point, plus the technical checks, we're getting we're really confident we're getting the right people through. And through this process, we actually found that the show rate is quite good. It's we're in that 95, 96% show rate. Shelly pointed out, you don't have to recruit as many to get as many, just simply because participants know we're real. That's the other thing. They know we're real. They're not being scammed in any way. And we certainly know these people are committed. So yeah, that's the start of what we built. And I'll let you take it from here, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan, for that practical show off. That's really a sophisticated tool, I must say. And I'm going to bring it right on to Shelly, still on the tool. You've seen and used the tool from outside. So we want you to tell us how it's actually like to use it. What's the experience of reviewing the videos and working through the tool day to day? Just let us know what your experience has been like using the tool.
Okay. And you know what? It's been a pleasure, let me just say, working with Dan and his team through what I call a beta, or maybe even alpha, on the projects. It's made a huge difference in the quality of people we're bringing in. We're now able to ask a video. We actually ask a video question as part of our recruit to confirm that the person we're inviting to participate is truly who they say they are, that they're able to be understood. They are comfortable being on camera, because they're not always comfortable being on, and they do not have AV issues. I mean, they have some knowledge of the process, and it's been great. I mean, and being able to see multiple videos and choosing which ones work. And most people, if they are not legit, they don't leave a video. They don't want to leave a video because they know they're caught. But if they do, you just are able to not have them show up in your group. It's huge, and it's very easy to use. They continue putting in new features. We talk maybe once a month or so, and they're like, well, what's the sticking points for you, and what, at least from my perspective, what would make this work better? And they've done a lot of the things, and we've talked about a lot of things that we've come upon. I've been working with itracks forever, so it really has made a difference in the quality of the recruit and the anxiety, a lot of the anxiety of that last moment before people, we ask them to come in about 15 minutes early, and then all of a sudden you start seeing strange people and you're dealing with them. You just don't have that anxiety anymore. The moderator is more relaxed. They're the ones that have to work with people that are not quite right for the session. We get better responses for our session.
That's amazing. Thank you, Shelly. Mm-hmm. The next question is to just have us zoom out a bit, and it's open to yourself and Dan, whoever wants to take it first. Where do you think the industry is still underestimating the risk of fraud in qualitative research? And the obvious follow-up is getting worse because AI-generated fake respondents have gone from a theoretical concern to a real present thing. How much has that changed the picture? And particularly, what or where do you think the industry is still underestimating the risk of fraud in qualitative research?
Shelly, if you don't mind, I can start or take this.
Yeah.
But before that piece, I actually just wanted to thank Shelly for her patience and her kindness in helping us build this. It's given us different perspectives. We always need a client to help build us. So thank you for that, Shelly.
You're welcome.
Two other points that I'm finding the tool is being used for. One is homework. Like sometimes there is stuff related to the research that they want information on. Show us your cabinet before we talk a little bit about how you hang your clothes. There's reasons why we can capture that video beforehand. And then the other one that we're starting to see is sometimes a client wants to know who's coming to their groups. Mm-hmm. And it gives them a measure of resolve as well. So they're able to say, okay, well, these are the people that we've recruited, and these are the people that show up and will be at your group. So
can I interject for just a second?
for sure.
Now, the other thing is, remember that this recruit can be just one-on-ones. I mean, you can be, I'm talking more of a focus group where I'm looking for 8 to 10 people to show, but one-on-ones, which makes a huge difference because you're scheduling people at a specific slot that someone else is putting time aside for. So if you end up bringing in the wrong people, it really wastes a whole lot of time. Being able to see people before the session and know that they match who you're trying to recruit is a great time saver.
As it relates to risk in the industry, I think anyone who is from the industry here recognizes that it's evolving so quickly. There's a whole bunch of different applications as they relate to AI. Where I think people are looking for qualitative right now is just the validity of research. So I think it makes it even more important. They're doing mass quantitative exercises now, and what we're finding sometimes is people saying, "I'd like to talk to these 10 people that filled out my quantitative exercise," and you have to have some confidence in that's proper data, and it's important. Same thing with AI moderated. We're finding people that are doing part AI moderated and either through an audit or expanding that research, then having people like Shelly come in and do in-person moderation in those cases. So I think it's becoming more and more important, and having the wrong person in that meeting, is quite detrimental. I get the general sense that there's shifting budgets within the industry, and people are really clinging to clients. And it is so very important that the research goes well. That's the feedback I'm getting. And so that's why we're really digging in and trying to build these tools to ensure that that's the case. So that's my comments as it relates to the importance.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan and Shelly. We're going to open it up to the room shortly. Obviously, I wouldn't be greedy to ask the questions alone. We'll get some questions from the audience. And while we're waiting for the audience to drop their questions in the Q&A, I have just another question to get final thoughts from Dan and Shelly. If someone out there is running a study right now and they're probably drowning or struggling with fraud in their research, scattered processes and systems for conducting their study, drowning in spreadsheets, scattered email thread, and all of that, what's one thing you'd want them to walk away thinking about? I mean, ladies first, so we can start with Shelly, and then we'll bring it to Dan.
Oh, I just think putting a tool in place that can validate who you're actually recruiting, who you're going to talk to. I think that it's a game changer. It just makes things more valid for your clients. And then also, if they see issues with your qualitative recruits where you're actually talking to people, then they start thinking about, what about your quantitative, and who are you talking to in the quantitative space? So I just think this video tool is a huge difference.
Thanks, Shelly. And to Dan?
Try it. That's what I would recommend. We have a free option that people can use, and talk to me. I'm still in the early stages of developing this. You have an open window to the president and the person that's passionate about this. So, get in, give it a try. I'm actively developing this tool, like Shelly said. So if there's something that's missing or that needs to be added, that's where our team is focused right now. So, by all means, I'd love to speak to anyone that's dealing with some of these issues.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan and Shelly. I'm just going to check to see if we have some questions that we can take. And if we're unable to take all the questions, of course, because of time, we would reach out personally to respond to any other question. I think one here is, how difficult is it to onboard a new team that's used to doing everything manually? And I think this is for the two. How difficult is it to onboard a new team that is used to doing everything manually?
Well, I speak first. I was impressed, Shelly, by your ability to use the tool. You got in there and were using it right away. I was a little worried, okay, just because one of the first people, but you and you had questions. You'd fire them over, but generally, I thought it was quite easy. We tried to develop a very, very simple interface. That was one of my goals, is to a single interface application where you're not having to jump around. And I'm going to be honest, some of my other tools don't have that. And that was out of my own learning that I have to be, have to make this thing easier to use. But I don't know. Do you have any comments, Shelley?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I mean, I came in early, so I had a lot of questions, and I did know itracks from the past because I've used your bulletin board tools, so that helped me. But it was a fairly quick learn, and I think if you just allow some extra time, or do a run through, do a mock project, and kind of play with it a little bit, I think you're going to find things are pretty intuitive once you get in there and start the tool. So I think it's a decent. I think it won't take you as long as you think. It's a pretty intuitive tool.
Piece. If I'd add one other comment, I think I've talked to a number of people that were involved in the recruiting process as well, and there's some trepidation to using something because they do have traditional ways that they know have worked, right? And because the risk is so big, it's tough for people to break away from those traditional methods. But what I would encourage people to do is you can always do those, but this tool increases capacity. And maybe I know it does for me, Shelly. My ability to more quickly recruit with confidence is in a tool. If your traditional method is to pick up the phone and then have a conversation with them, that is still available. But I think what it does is it allows project managers to manage bigger projects, more projects, and then feel confident with the quality that they're going to get. But yeah, I don't think, again, it's not always this replacement theory. It's just something that really, really helps in that process.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan and Shelly. One question for you, Dan, because I think it's about the tool and pricing from Annie. It reads, a work for a small company that often does fairly small qualitative projects from 10 to 15 interviews or 5 to 12 focus groups. Sometimes these are recruited from known audiences, but occasionally we have to recruit more publicly. And this is where we've had problems with fraud. But given the size of our company, 20 employees and our projects, I wonder if the software would be cost effective for smaller scale work.
I like to think so. I think that that's who it was built for. We have a couple of options where you can buy it with by the project or by annually as from a license standpoint. And piece, I think we're sharing some of the costing later on. But Shelly, maybe you can speak to it. I think it's quite inexpensive, quite frankly, compared to the number of, like, if you compare it to the number of hours you save and the HR related to that, it's pretty straightforward that it's worthwhile.
Well, and it's the hours you save, but also the money you save because you're not over recruiting, you're not paying out those additional incentives. I think it's very reasonable. It's like the missing piece to your recruit. And speaking to the question, we do qualitative and quantitative. We are a full service research company. So this is not our main thing. And we do a handful of groups here and there when we do it. And it's very cost effective for us. It's not an expensive tool at all.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan and Shelly. I think Rachel can just drop in the chat box the link. And then, yes, you can have a call or a chat directly with Dan to learn more about how a solution can be created specifically for you. I think we have one anonymous question that I'll take, and then we'll bring us to a close. So we have to actually... I'll just take one. What's the security model for participant data, especially with several outside recruits working in the same project?
That's a good question, and it's a lot of work actually, because we've worked on that. So the nice part about this is all of the PII is masked to each of the recruiters. So if they log in, they will only see their data, um, and the each other's data is always masked. So there's no sharing of PII in that space. Of course, anything that you're presenting to the client has it actually removed. So there's no, it's not even that it's masked. It's that there is nothing presented, because you get the choice to show what you'd like to the client. So it was a big project, but we have that nailed down. And of course, everything is secured through login and two-factor authentication. So nothing is being shared via email. It's just kind of we knew we had to build it from that framework, and so that was the thought from the start.
All right, thank you so much, Dan. I think we're at time, so I would be respectful of everybody's schedule and bring us to a close. However, if you have more questions that you'd like to ask, please feel free to email us. You can also book a time to chat directly with Dan. If you want to chat with Shelly as well, her email address is just in the chat box, and you can also write to her. Dan, Shelly, thank you both. This was genuinely a timely and great and insightful conversation, I must say. And I think a lot of people in the room recognize that. We had someone in the comments who had said they appreciated the practicality in the session. To everyone who joined us, thank you for your time. And if we didn't get to your question again, we will follow up with you directly. 3 things before we all go. 1, the recording and the material will be sent to everyone who registered. We'd also have a blog post going out soon on this where you can read more. 2 is that this again is just one part of our 8 series. So please keep an eye out on your inbox for the next session in the series. And 3, if you want to see this tool against your own project setup, please make sure that you reach out directly to the team and we'll organize a chat with you. Thank you all once again and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Peace. Thank you, Shelly.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. Glad to help.